Okay, we've talked about writing numbers in standard form, but what if we want to write them into scientific notation? You can write both large and small numbers in scientific notation. Let's start with an easy one. So let's say we have 50,000 and we want to write this in scientific notation. Now remember, if you watch the scientific notation video, that our factor needs to be less than 1 and our exponent needs to be an integer. So the first thing you're going to do is you're going to take this decimal and you're going to move it to the right of the first number that is not 0. So we find this spot right here. Here's the first number that's not a 0. So we know it's going to go here. So we're going to count. Remember, we always have an invisible decimal at the end of every whole number. We go 1, 2, 3, 4. So we had to move that decimal 4 spaces to the left in order to get a number that is no more than 10, but at least 1. When we move our decimal to the left, our exponent is positive in this case. So we now have 5 times 10 to the power of 4 because we moved it 4 spaces. Now, because 5 is more than 1 but less than 10, this is written in scientific notation. Let's look at a smaller number. What if we had 0.005? Well, we're going to do the same thing here. We're going to look for the first number that's not a 0, and we're going to make sure that it goes to the right of it. When we move this decimal, we're going to the right. So we're going 1, 2, 3 spots. And because we moved it to the right, we know that our exponent is going to be negative. So we also have 5, but we're multiplying it by 10 to the power of negative 3 because we moved it 3 spots to the right. And this is scientific notation because this 5 is less than 10 but more than 1. And this is an integer. Now, just to show some quick rationale with the backwards positive and negative, because when we usually think of moving decimals, we think of moving left as negative and moving right as positive. But if we were to take this number written in scientific notation and write it in standard form like we learned how to do in the last video, we would see why our exponent is positive. If we wanted to write this, we would go 4 spaces to the right because this 4 is positive. So from the 5, we would add some placeholders and we go 1, 2, 3, I need one more, 4, and we'd be left with 50,000. So think big numbers, positive exponents. Now what about this one? We know that in this case, if we wanted to write this as a standard form number back to its original, we know that this negative 3 means we move it to the left 3 times. So we'd have our 5, and we'd move it to the left 1, 2, 3, add some placeholders. And so we're left with 0.005, which is the number we started with in the first place. So smaller numbers, negative exponents, large numbers, positive exponents.